So you mentioned quality candidates. Of course, that is something that Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has said multiple times, that candidate quality matters, and implying that this time around Republicans maybe did not have the best quality candidates. So I want to ask you, it was a deliberate decision on the behalf of the National Republican Senatorial Committee run by Senator Rick Scott of Florida not to intervene in Republican primaries. Do you think that was a mistake?
That's always a hard question. I mean, I think the argument always is you got to let Republican voters decide, and that's ultimately it's up to them who your nominees are going to be. But you do have a significant amount of intervention now from other outside groups, people, billionaires, for example, who invest heavily in trying to get certain candidates nominated through the primaries. In many cases, candidates who might not be good general election candidates, and I think there will be some takeaways from this election about perhaps, as we go through the candidate recruitment process, identifying candidates who are not only good primary election candidates, in other words, they can win a Republican primary, but ultimately, particularly if you're talking about a state like Arizona or Pennsylvania or Ohio, you've got to have candidates that are also good general election candidates in those swing states. And I think in many cases, you had candidates this time around who, sought the endorsement of former President Trump. And in order to get that endorsement, the predicate was you've got to be publicly out there advancing the argument that the 2020 election was stolen. That was a non-starter with independent voters. And if you look at states like Arizona and Pennsylvania, and Arizona in particular, you have 40% of the electorate as independent voters. And, our candidate in Arizona lost by 16 points among independent voters. So those are the voters in the middle. They're the voters who decide general elections. And the message to voters like that clearly has to be something other than relitigating the 2020 election. I think a lot of this was just people saying, enough of that already. Tell me what you're going to do about the future. Tell me how you're going to improve the quality of life for me and for my family. Tell me what you're going to do to create better paying jobs in this country. I think those are the types of issues that our candidates should have been talking about. Unfortunately, in many cases, to get through the primary, and again, to get the former president's endorsement, they had to take positions that were very contrary to where I think the general electorate was at.